It's Today in EVE Online, Monday, March 9th, 2020. I'm here with my friend Spod. How's it going?
Hello.
All right. The big news that we are following is the destruction of TDSIN in their wormhole known as Solaris. That is started, I would say, it depends on when you mark the beginning, but real destruction happened about 12 hours ago. Their main Fortizar was destroyed with their many assets in it. And in wormhole space, they lose all those assets. And then several other Fortizars were destroyed after that, and more are being reinforced now. So that entire colony of wormholers will be have all their stuff destroyed. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We went and did live coverage on that, which was pretty cool. But
Just
we
for
couldn't.
clarity, who is TDSIN?
TDSIN are, well, I don't know. Do you know? Okay, well, why are you asking me? Well, TDSIN is also, that's the corporation. They're also known as the Scary Wormhole People. And they're a very big alliance. Actually, let's have a look at how big they are.
It's Exuki's people.
Yes, they are led by Exukis. And Exuki is the CSM. A lot of people know him. He's a CSM member. He represents a lot of the wormhole interest in CSM. He also works here at Talking in Stations, and he heads the podcast, the whole story for TIS, but he did one before that. I think it was called Down the Hole or Down the Rabbit Hole or something like that. But let's look at TDSIN. Dark Space Initiative is what it stands for. So Dark Space Initiative is the corporation. And again, it's different inside of wormholes because wormhole groups don't need to grow into alliances. They really can just stay corporations. And most of the time when you're talking about a wormhole group, you're going to refer to them through their corporate name, not their alliance name. They do make alliances so that they can have a few corporations combined with their alliance. But essentially, the corporation is the Dark Space Initiative, whereas the alliance is called the Scary Wormhole People. So their scale is about 478, not about, exactly 478 members, so about 500 members. Now, that's characters, so in actuality, what that translates to is about 100 people, 120 people in fleet at one time. Like if they were to show up to defend themselves, they might get 100, 120 people online. That's huge for a wormhole group. Normally, wormhole groups are about 1/4 that size. They're being attacked by 3 different wormhole groups that combined can get close to equaling those kinds of numbers. But we can talk about all this in a bit. Let's just go to the stats first. All right, let's see where the violence is. Maybe we should I should probably reverse the order. Do the, no, because the combat kind of informs the politics. So we'll start with combat. Most violent regions in the last 24 hours. Well, the most violent region won't be represented here because these statistics only encompass known space. So unknown space, which are basically wormholes, won't show up on here. But the most active combat in the last 24 hours was probably in wormhole space. But on paper here, looks like last 24 hours in 0-0, it was Delve in first place at 750. Catch in second place, 546 ships destroyed. And in third place, Decline, 411 ships destroyed. And here's why it's in third place, 366 pods destroyed. So that was probably a big fight. Providence, on the other hand, had more ships destroyed, but less pods destroyed. And that's why it's in the 4th position there. In Empire region, wow, Citadel had 3,000 ships destroyed. That must have been a lot of ganking. Weekend ganking, right? Is that what happens? And then
Don't think so. It's usually pretty consistent, though. I think Saturdays are quite a prime time for it.
Saturdays, yeah. Well, looks like something happened on Sunday in Citadel. I'm not sure if it was an organized or just people being really active at ganking things through Citadel. Citadel has some choke points for the market hub areas. So we've said this before, but in Empire region, there's three regions that are going to have the most amount of casualties. It's going to be the Forge, where the market hub is, the one known as Jita. You're going to have Citadel, which is a neighboring system, which has a partial pathway to other trade hubs, and Lone Trek. Lone Trek actually has a lot of bordering regions to nullsec and some active lowsec areas, and that's why it also neighbors the trade hub. So it's got like a lot of elements going for it. And then you'll always see Black Rise in the top 10 list because that's the most active low security space area. Now these are all owned and governed by empires. Those are NPC empires in the game. But it does mean it's high and low sec. 0-0 by definition is not part of an empire because it is considered lawless outlaw space. And that's why regions like Delve, Catch, Decline, and even Providence, which seems like it would be empire, is not empire. It's lawless space conquered by players and patrolled and owned by players. So that's completely different than empire space. And I want to point out that Providence, to me, always seems like an NPC region since it's so popular and it's so affiliated with the Amarian Empire. Providence, for those that don't know, is run by players who consider themselves part of the Amar Empire. They are part of the holders, basically holders, landowners. And as holders, they rule Providence as part of the Amarian Empire. But it's actually outlaw space. Okay. Most violent systems. Let's see if we can... Oh, Inksmother, J-Tac-Z in Inksmother, number one spot in the last 24 hours. 197 ships destroyed, 150 pods. That's a pretty good fight. Let me look down here at most active systems for ratting and see if it pops up here. Because this says J-Tac-Z and Inksmother. Nope. Because I wondered if they weren't trying to disrupt ratting. And that's a number one spot. Number two spot, let me say that again. The number one spot is J-Tac-Z with 197 ships destroyed, 152 pods destroyed. Number two spot belongs to 2R Dash in Decline with 147 ships destroyed and 114 pods destroyed. And Decline, as you know, is where a war is being wrapped up. And Dead Coalition used to own that area. And Dead Coalition is now dead. We covered that on yesterday's show, last Sunday's show. So check that out. The third spot for most violent systems in the last 24 hours is the heart of Delve, the Imperium Empire. And that is 1DQ1, TAC A. And 147 ships destroyed there, too. Most violent systems in high sec are, again, Citadel. We talked about that earlier. The region itself has the most violent, but the system in that region is Udama. That is the major choke point for trade hubs, and that's where a lot of ganking happens. So you had 1,255 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours there. That's why it topped the list. Normally, Forge is at the top of the list, but that one system just generated, let's have a look, 1/3 the amount of casualties for that region. That's a huge, huge bump. Okay, so most active systems for... Did I skip low sec? Yes, I did. So most violent systems in low sec. Number one is Tama with 643 ships destroyed, 220 pods. That's about 1/3 the pods. That makes sense. Pods are hard to kill in low sec. Not only is it a bad idea to kill them, apparently, and this is a correction that somebody pointed out, it does give you a standings hit. And I made that case and said that's why pods don't usually get destroyed. And that used to be true, but now people just don't care anymore. There's reasons for that. Now, the reason pods aren't killed in low sec is because they're just hard to kill. You can't trap them, and they can usually get away. Now, the reason the standings hit isn't a big deal anymore is because in the old days, if you lowered your standing too far, you had to do a bunch of missions to work it back up. And that took you hours and days to do. So it was actually a penalty to behave really badly in low sec. But at one point, that was such a problem. And of course, it's a problem because anytime, if you get your standings too low, when you go through a high sec system, you'll automatically be targeted by the NPCs in that region. And that caused problems for null sec people flying through high sec, trying to get to a different fight. Like they were unable to go through known space or empire space because they would get killed by the authorities because they were so, they had such bad standing. So that was a problem CCP addressed by giving you the ability to essentially buy your way into relatively good standing. Spot, are you familiar with that at all?
Vaguely, I've had a few court mates do it after they had a interesting time in low sec for a while.
Yeah. But that was pretty much it, right? Like people thought, well, look, every time I try to do the pirate thing, I get so penalized that the game is no longer fun and I quit because they're constantly attacked by the local authorities until they do some missions, which is boring. It's stuff they don't want to do to get themselves back to a place where they at least won't get attacked. They're still negative standing, but the standings aren't so bad that they get attacked instantly. So what CCP did, it said, well, okay, well, you can pay your way out of that kind of criminality through these tags that you buy, and so that's why it's not such a big deal anymore to pod people in low sec because the standings hit can just be bribed right back up to a relatively safe amount.
Although the cost can be not insignificant for some people.
Yeah, it's considered a bad boy tax, basically. But it was a good correction that most of the time the reason pods aren't destroyed is they're hard to get. Now, the reason you do want to destroy them is because people stack those pods with really good implants, right? Because if a pod is hard to kill, then you're likely to put more expensive investment into that pod, like high grade implants as opposed to medium grade implants. If you destroy a pod in outlaw space in nullsec, chances are it's going to have at best mid-grade slave sets or mid-grade sets of implants because nobody wants to spend $1 billion on implants and get that all destroyed every other week on fleets. So because it's rare to be able to kill a pod, that's where you put your investment, and that's why you'll see low-sec people with incredibly pricey implants. And I think also probably wormholers too, right? I would think.
Yes and no.
I think it's
Depends.
a mixed bag, right?
One of the things is with wormholes, I think, is individual wealth is more common, so it's more of a wealth thing than it is a accessibility the way low sec is.
Right. And also wormholers are constantly going into nullsec, even just to travel. Yeah, but anyway, so low sec is where you'll see the high grade implants and stuff. Again, because the pods are harder to kill. Looking at the most active systems for NPCing, right now Cobalt Edge is super active with 21,000 NPCs killed in the last 3 hours. That really dwarfs number 2, which is in Owasso. Let's just say 2, 3, 4 are all in Owasso, and they're all about 15,000 NPCs killed in the last 3 hours. So, and look at this. The number 1 spot is taken by, and this is for the 24 hours groupings. The number 1 spot is taken by MTAC V in Cobalt Edge, and that is 53,000 NPCs destroyed in the last 24 hours. In the last 3 hours, half of those have been destroyed. So something's going on in that system. Let's have a look at it. That's curious. Normally we expect Oasa to be at the number 1 spot. Oh, it's Horde space. And it's in a deep pocket. You see that? So this is the neighboring system to Oasa. So it's not super crazy, but if we look at this setting, we're going to switch to NPCs killed. Yeah, there's 5,000 killed in the last. I think that's, I don't know what that rate's. Last 24 hours, 53,000 destroyed in the last. Yeah, look how red that is compared to everything else. And I'm looking at Delta 2 to see like if this is prime time for that system, and it is for that pocket, but not necessarily that system. So that deep pocket in Horde space in Cobalt Edge, they're really ratting the heck out of it. Now, why would that happen today as opposed to other days? Yikes! Hold on. Dang, that is like loud. No. Sorry about that. That is just garbage phone calls constantly. Okay, so the reason for that is that the war in the north is over, and hordelings that were fighting in that war and deployed, a lot of them, it might be premature, but they're starting to ramp up their ratting efforts in order to make money. So that might be what's going on there. Wow, but they got busy. Wow, they took the number 1 spot. That's a big deal. So the number 2 spot is Oasa with 51,000. Number 3 spot is also in Oasa, and that is 43,000. And that's in the last 24 hours. So you do see some delve in there, but only one system. So really, I wonder if that's because in the last 24 hours, the Goon Swarm was busy trying to help out a wormhole group. Maybe.
Makes sense. I know a lot of Goon players, when they're not farming, they're desperate for something to do. So that kind of thing would drag them away.
Yeah. So looking at the Alliance Shuffle, we'll call it, Test has lost 1,000 members, and that was from a corporation that took off. The New Bros, I think they were called. Darkness, you can see them imploding now. This is in the last 7 days, and they officially have closed and disbanded. And Sword Dragon is now in a different group in the initiative, I think. But his group, Darkness, it's been around a while, is no more. Let's actually look at Darkness's history. You can see them collide. You know, they were at about 2,000 members. They're under 500 now, and they'll continue to collapse down to maybe 100 or so of dead characters sitting there. But if we look at their foundations, they actually started in 2013. Darkness goes way back, and we should probably do just a show on who Darkness is and what they did and where they have been. But I think they were always run by Sword Dragon. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think they were. And they were a very friendly Russian, Australian alliance, I guess, that was friendly with Russians, or Sword Dragon was friendly with Russians. He made those connections. And that was a good relationship for what looks like the last 7 years. They were popular and instrumental in BTAC-R. And that's basically, I think that's basically where they started to gain prominence. But they have always been around through N3, through the Phoebe jump changes, through the aftermath of BTAC-R, all the way up into the later years of World War B, or especially in the last, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy was a big player in the North for the last few years. That's probably what they're known for. And at the center of Guardians of the Galaxies was Darkness. Now, Guardians of the Galaxies changed their name to Dead Coalition. So whenever you hear Dead Coalition or Guardians of the Galaxy, those are the same people, same group, just a name change. But they finally met their end in February. or they're meeting their end now in March. Okay, something that that creature just creeps me out. Looking for Eve online. Why am I seeing all this other stuff?
Creature?
That snaky creature, sea monster that was in the aquarium at CCP was oof. It was crazy looking. I don't even know what this lady's doing on my feed, but I better get past that real quick. Well, anyway, we noticed that. Maybe I should just type it in. Well, let's just start with this. Extended downtime tomorrow as the new patch comes in. We expect those patch notes to be out any minute now, really. They usually come out the day before the patch hits. The patch is hitting tomorrow, and they should be out now. We also saw from CCP Dopamine that he says this week is going to be really exciting, and that he's writing up the notes, the patch notes. So they should be out any time now. I'm not sure what's in these patch notes because they've announced some things that are going to hit in the future, but I don't know how near they are. But I think this might be. Let's see if I can dig up. You have any idea what's in this patch?
Most likely the battleship escape pod thing, and then some minor things coming with it is what I'm hoping it's going to be the mineral one, but I don't think it will be.
Yeah, let's have a look here. So the frigate escape bay for battleships. Yeah, that's got to be the highlight of this patch. This is fight or flight. Refers to what you do with your escape pod. Do you fight with your frigate or do you escape with your frigate? But I don't see a link to the Eve updates, but let's see if we can do that. So Eve updates, patch notes, updates is what I want. Nope, that's the wrong site.
Oh, of course. It's the market stuff.
Yeah, but how much of that
Broker
is coming
relation
through?
much.
Here we go. Patch notes. Well, this is last month. So the new patch notes are not up yet. Broker relations is what you're thinking of, right?
Yeah, it's scheduled for tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
According to the Eve update site.
Well, this is a big deal then. We're on the verge of a market shift that's going to slow down market trading. I mean, if they implement that, everything they said at once in there, market trades, it's going to take a while for the market trades to really seize up because the market trades that are already on the board get to live out their, I don't know, 90-day time limit. But the next time it changes, it'll be subject to higher fees. That to me means that this will start tomorrow, but the market won't really completely be converted over to the new taxing model for about 90 days. Still, most of the stuff.
I think it's more that existing orders will just be grandfathered in. If you modify an order, it should then come under the new rule.
Right. It loses its grandfather status if you change it, right?
Yeah, if you just leave it alone, then you're good. But if you mess with it, yeah.
So what's that mean? Is there some advice to give people right now in preparations for this patch?
I think it's also up in the air. No one's quite figured it out yet. That I couldn't tell you either.
Yeah.
Wait and see.
It's weird. The economy it's not a straightforward decision on when to put money in, when to take money out. The long-term effects of what CCP is trying to do is to make value something to fight over. And in order to increase value of things, to make it worth fighting over, you have to bring in scarcity so that something becomes more valuable. And the scarcity, well, where does that hit? They haven't said where. It's going to hit, I think, in multiple areas. Of course, they wouldn't just do it in one area. So you're going to see it hit T1 ships and modules. You're going to see it hit T2 ships and modules too. Those are different dials that CCP has to turn. For T1, they basically have to adjust mineral composition and availability. For T2, they have to do moon mineral composition and availability. And then what you may see is, I wonder if they'll do anything to T3. The one thing this will do is it'll make everything slower, because if you move too fast on the market, you will lose money. There's a lot more opportunity to get taxed and lose money if you're too active on the market, which means you've got to put your bets in. You've got to put your price points in, your products for sale in, and let them sit. That's the big change.
It's a huge spanner in the works for the bots. Not that they won't be able to still operate, but it's far less profitable for them to do so.
And I don't know if it's a good idea to jump in the market now, try to save a few bucks on taxes, and price something for the going rate right now, because at some point that item may become more valuable over the next few months. And if you put it in too low and you increase the price that you want to sell it at, you're going to incur some costs. So I don't know if it's a smart idea to hold on to equipment right now and wait to see where the scarcity starts to take those prices. Or if there's some benefit to getting into the market right now to just kind of like get the stuff on the market before those changes happen. I don't know.
It seems like all the big money makers have long gone at this point, but I'm sure there'll be a few niches people can find that are a good investment.
Yeah. So skilling is just a means, and that's part of a song that CCP put together, where killing is just a means of communication is the name of the song. Look it up. And this is skilling is just a means. And what this is, and it's a play on killing, because this is a program where if you go out and PvP, you will gain skill points. So if I go out and kill 2 or 3 ships, I will gain a certain amount of skill points, which has never been done before. And this will start a few days. This will only go, it's a temporary thing, and it'll go on for, looks like a month or less. But it is going to start a day after patch. So this will be on the 12th, not the 10th. Let's see. Yeah, tomorrow is the patch, which is the 10th. So this will start 2 days after the patch. Probably they want to stabilize the patch before they start this program. And so the program will start on the 12th, and it will go until April 14th. So this is incentivizing actual player versus player combat. It doesn't say how much skill points per kill, but it just says you can rack up hundreds of thousands of skill points through the event by destroying player ships and then using your amassed skill points to speed up the training in any area you choose to specialize in. So it's a new program. They're testing it out. What could go wrong? Couldn't you just like set something up where you kill each other to skill up? Like 2 groups basically say, we'll kill you, you kill us.
That's the interesting thing. How are they gonna? And I suppose they don't necessarily have to, but how are they going to prevent people shooting their own alts just for some easy?
I don't know. They may just, that's probably why it's a limited time. So you can get in on this and try to rack up a bunch of skill points, but I don't know. Maybe the skill points aren't worth the effort. Who knows? It depends on people. Some people, skill points are incredibly valuable. So who knows? There are no details here. We'll have to wait for patch notes to see where the details are. Also, this is unfair for people who are roaming around in low sec. It's a lot harder for them to get fights that have a lot of contact points. Whereas in nullsec, if you get into 1 or 2 good fleets, you've got hundreds of contact points. In other words, hundreds of targets, hundreds of people you can register on their kill mails, which means that you're actually in combat. It just kind of plays right to those big organizations, big fights. So I wonder if they've weighted it in some way. Like if there's 100 people involved, you get 1/100th of the amount of skill points. But if there's 10 people involved, you get 1/10 the amount of skill points that you would normally get for a fight. Maybe something like that. Who knows?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's something as simple as you must destroy something as big as a cruiser or something. just so there's a guaranteed value destroyed. So you can kill your own ults, but you'll have to pay for it.
Yeah. So and in the paying of the skill points, or sorry, the amount of ISK that you have to destroy will probably equal what a skill injector would cost. And so then it's a wash. Why don't you just
Good
buy the
day.
skill injector? Yeah. Something like that. Oh, Fonsway, how you doing, buddy?
Just hopped in.
Yeah.
I figured I would share what I knew about this event.
Oh, this is fantastic. Tell us what you know.
So there's, well, I actually don't know anything. I have assumptions based on information on Hobo Leaks, and what they have shown is a task to kill a single player for 10,000 skill points, and there was another task to capture a what's it called? To capture a Plex, a faction warfare Plex. So those are the two tasks that we've seen so far. We don't know what they're going to use, but it's going to be individual credit for individual players for a fixed number of skill points per task.
Well, it seems very structured then.
Well, it's just like the current skilling spree. Kill 1 rat, 10,000. Kill 5 rats, 25,000. Kill 10 rats, 50,000. So this will be similar, but with PvP objectives instead of PvE objectives.
Well, it makes a lot more sense that they would have some kind of framework. So there's two ways to get skill points then?
We don't know if either of those tasks will be put in. Those are both on Hobo Leaks and not official. But since that's all that we've seen, and it matches with the mechanics that they've used in the previous events until now, we can assume that that is what they're going to do, as long as we don't double and triple down on it and expect it to be definitely that way.
Cool, thanks. We'll find out in the patch notes, right?
Yes, they will tell us exactly what the requirements are, the restrictions, credits. For instance, we don't know if in-corp kills will be credited. We don't know if Corvette kills will be credited. But one must assume, and I would be very surprised if this was not the case, that out-of-corp frigate kills will count.
Great. Awesome, Fonsui. Thanks for filling us in. Stick
Sure,
around.
no problem.
What else is going to be in this patch, do you think? There's going to be the frigate escape bay. Skilling is just a means. And the filaments, are they out yet?
Yeah, they're out.
They already came
The
out.
Needlejacks, yeah, the Needlejacks
Needlejacks.
have been around for some time. They have said that they are going to be releasing the blueprints for the 25-player filaments as events only. So right now, the 5-player filaments drop from data sites. The 15 filaments are created from the 5s and a blueprint that is purchased with OR LP, Outer Ring Excavations loyalty points. And the 25s will come from blueprints that take the 15s, and the blueprints will be distributed through events only.
So the 25 group is basically a T2 version of the 15.
Well, there's
group.
3 tiers. There's the 5, the 15s, and the 25s. And the 25s will be exceedingly expensive because and everything comes in signal and noise variant. So there's 6. There's 5, 10, and 15 for the signal and for the noise. The signal will take you to systems with high activity, and the noise is fully random.
Oh, okay. So the most desired of those two is going to be the signal as opposed to the noise?
Well, signal for PvP,
Yeah.
noise for explorers that want to go hack or do combat sites, and noise also for people that want to escape if they're dead-ended.
Such a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. It's not all about killing things, right?
Yeah, these have use to get into fights, to get out of fights, to get into PvE fights, into PvP fights. Like, these things are just awesome in general. I have been pushing Signal Cartel. The debate is still ongoing to include these in our rescue caches so that people can yeet themselves out of a wormhole.
Yeah. And it's also interesting if you do some kind of attack. One of the things that people have complained about in the past, if you attack a big group, like let's say the Imperium or Test or Fraternity, and they drop their super cap umbrella on you because they're defending their mining operations with a standing fleet, and it jumps on you. One of the things that people have complained about is even if they don't catch you in that first system, they can catch you in any direction you go because they obviously know and control the area. And so this is really like opening up a random wormhole and going through it and escaping. They can't follow you through that.
The only restriction is combat timers. Capsuleer combat timer and non-capsuleer combat timer will both prevent the filament from being activated, which means you have to play cat and mouse until your timer expires if you currently have one. And if you are jumped and given a timer immediately, then you will not be able to leave. But if you somehow can stay out of range and not get a timer, then you'll be able to jump away.
That kind of cracks me up. It's like throwing a hole in the floor and jumping in.
Yeah.
I love it. So those filaments are already in the game. They are now a permanent fixture of the game. They were a temporary event not long ago. And can you just describe for people who don't know this very well how these things work? Like what the 1525, the 5,
Sure.
1525 are and stuff?
You have the item in cargo. You have to be in a fleet. You have to be 1,000 kilometers away from anything anchored. And then as soon as you click that filament, you will take your ship into a random nullsec system if you use a noise filament, and to a high activity nullsec system if you use a signal filament. The number at the end of the filament determines how many players you are capable of bringing with you if you have them in your fleet. So if you use a 5 size filament, you will bring up to 4 players with you if they are immediately next to your ship and in your fleet at the time that you jump. 15s will carry up to 14 more people, and 25s will take up to 24 more people, including yourself. There is a trick that people have been using. Go to JITA, invite random person to fleet. When they accept, fly up next to them and yeet them out into nullsec and kill them.
Yeah, it's
Are
kidnapping.
there,
Yep.
are there restrictions
Shanghai.
on what kind of ship can use it and what cannot?
No capitals.
Interesting.
So battleship and below. And no restrictions on T2, T1, T3, whatever.
Just capitals.
So capitals can't be moved this way either, right? So if you're in a capital ship, you cannot be hijacked or
Correct.
shanghaied. Yeah, interesting. So these things have been incredibly popular for various types of gameplay. There are some downsides to it because it starts to relieve pressure on empires that have to go source their fun far away, and it takes them a long time. And so that's a pressure not to group up so big. And so this kind of relieves that pressure, which means you can be part of a big and lucrative group that has a lot of security and also get your fun with these things. And that's why they're so popular among nullsec. But theoretically, that makes living in a big group less punishing, and the punishing pressure of living in a big group is part of the reason not to live in a big group. So I don't know, kind of works against what they're doing.
They don't know the full ranging consequences of putting this in permanently. When this was initially introduced as the reindeer filaments temporarily, the thought process inside CCP was more like, we have something special, we have lightning in a bottle, let's not waste it. And then there was a change in thinking between then and these being released, because now it's permanent. So they're kind of just throwing it out there. So I don't know exactly what their goals are, but hopefully the overall impact on the game stability will be there are more fights, there are more players happy to stay, etc. That is what we're hoping for.
Yeah. I don't want to overstate it. People really like this from all walks of Eve life, so it's been a big success for them. And you were saying now the change, and the reason that we're talking about this is the first 2 levels of it, the 5 group and the 15 group, have already been released, but the 25s haven't. Is that right?
Correct, and they won't be. They will only be given out on special occasions during events. So the 25s will be expensive and will likely be stockpiled to some degree or another.
Right. So that means that this is really, because it's random essentially in nature, your group is limited to that size. Otherwise, you'll split up your group, right?
Yep. Can't just bring 2 because they'll yeet to 2 different places.
Right. So this really
I have had a thought.
What's
I
that?
have had a thought of taking 3 5s or 3 15s and yeeting to separate places, and then all 3 fleets begin to converge, and whoever's left when you come together is the new fleet.
I like that. So it's throw yourselves in the forest. You get dropped off by helicopters, and find your way to this certain point.
Yeah. And just kill along the way, get fights, and whoever's remaining when you meet up, it's like, now we go and kill more.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's so many possibilities of fun things to do with these. But your exploration point was so good. I didn't think of it in terms of the
Mhm.
opposite, running away from a fight or just going and saying, I want to visit a new place. I don't know where to go. It's like putting
Sure.
your finger on the map with your eyes closed and saying, okay, that's where I'm going to go.
Yep. People that do, data and relic hacking use it. People that do combats, use it. Just go out to null, find a quiet spot. If you don't land in a quiet spot the first time, cloak up and yeet again.
Mm-hmm. By the way, how
Is there
expensive are these things?
The fives drop from data sites, so they're mega cheap. The 15s, last I checked, were a little over 100 mil a piece because again, or loyalty points.
Well, 15 is a small gang, right? So
hmm
they're 100 million. Okay. And the other ones are, I mean, when you say cheap, what do you mean?
I've seen under a mil for the noises, maybe 3 to 5 mil for the signals. I'll check right
Oh,
now though.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's very reasonable.
is there much of a time cooldown after you use one to use another?
15 minutes. It's the standard combat timer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so the noise 5 is 600,000 ISK, and the signal 5 is 2.4 mil.
Wow.
The noise 15 has now dropped to 79, and the signal 15 is 130.
Million.
Correct.
Yeah. The fifth, that's really, 100. Yeah. That's really, the individuals are really interesting. Now, the reason I'm going to get them confused, but let's call it the exploration one is cheapest is because less people have that in mind. Whereas if you want to hunt something, that's a signal one, right? Yeah.
Correct.
The signal one is going to be more expensive, even for 5 or less, because you can solo hunt all the time. There's a lot more demand for that, I would think.
Yeah, there is definitely more demand. There was also a drop rate issue. The noises were dropping a lot more than the signals, and I'm not sure if it's intended to be that way or if it's going to stay that way. But at least as of now, they are still dropping significantly more.
Oh, that's interesting. But if they drop more, there's more availability. The price should be lower, but it's
And
just.
it is.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So technically, there's muddied water here because there are two issues that are easily conflated. There's the demand and the supply, and it's tough to suss out how much, what percentage of the cost is based on one and what percentage of the cost is based on the other. So we have two items that have unequal demand and also unequal supply. So it's kind of apples and oranges to compare their prices until one of those two things matches up or can be sussed out.
Yeah. And just a quick note here, D. Casper says the 25 needle jack, the 25 member needle jack with the new market rules,
Yeah, he's saying it's going to make it very difficult to move those or make them very expensive, etc., because there will be less leapfrogging, so there will be slower movement in the pricing. People will take up positions and hold them.
Yeah. But it's hard to know what those positions should be unless you just do
hmm
whatever the
It's
ratio
just
is between 5 and
yeah,
15. Then you just use that same ratio to do the 25. But I don't think it works that way.
yep. It's a brand new item with a brand new mechanic introduced into a brand new market system. So
Yeah.
all bets are off.
Chaos. Chaos is still with us, which is good. Well, cool. So this patch notes tomorrow is going to be the skilling spree. That it starts actually a couple days after after the patch tomorrow. And but what we do know, the frigate escape bay is in the patch. So, oh wait a minute, arriving in late March it says here.
Yeah, they haven't given us a date, I guess.
So we don't know if this is going to be in the next patch. I mean, it's not
It's
going to come.
also it's also this text here is inaccurate regarding the mechanics behind this feature.
Oh, have they changed
Uh,
it?
it said, "Oh no, it was always different. This text was always incorrect because the
Oh,
guy who coded it didn't write this text. Someone else in marketing did." This implies that you will end up in a frigate if your battleship is destroyed, which is true. However, if you eject from a battleship, if you simply leave the ship while there is a frigate in the bay, you will then be in the frigate in space with an unmanned battleship next to you and an empty bay. And then you can go back in from a frigate. If you're in a pod, you can enter a battleship. And if you're in a frigate, you can enter a battleship that has an empty frigate bay. Your frigate will automatically be stored.
Well, so this is literally it's not the
A
same
maintenance
thing,
bay.
but it's ghost riding.
Yeah. Essentially, what I've imagined this can be used as is you take two pilots out together, a pair, and you can have as many pairs in a fleet as you want, but you have a pair, and a battleship pilot with a frigate inside, and a frigate pilot flying a frigate. And then the frigate pilot can swap frigates at will, so the battleship has a choice of two support ships at any given point in time.
Wild. Well, that's interesting. We'll see how this plays out. But it's do you think it's arriving late in March, or is it arriving tomorrow?
God knows.
There's no clues. Okay, we'll have to see.
I will not ever speculate on something that is this loose.
Yeah.
Another minor change is
yeah.
they're changing how moons look.
Yes, the moon look is different.
That's coming, isn't it? Aren't there changes coming tomorrow to moons, or no? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, there's a graphic change. So they won't be so black.
Okay.
Actually, let's take a look at this video. We said that this had come out, but we never actually played it for you, so we'll play it now. I'll ask the guys in chat here just to be silent for a few minutes. This thing will be 4 minutes and 11 seconds long, and we'll go ahead and play it for you. Here it is now. This is Eve Pulse, the visual updates. Those are to the moons. Upcoming changes, and the CSM and more. So we'll be back in 4 minutes. Check out this video.
Hey Capsuleers, welcome to The Pulse, your regular catch-up on everything that's been happening in EVE Online. The Council of Stellar Management, or the CSM, are here in the Reykjavik office for their summit. CSM members will be discussing a multitude of subjects to do with EVE Online, even making their own presentations to the staff. We will have more details to share with you on the outcome of the summit next episode of The Pulse. To talk about the motives behind recent and upcoming changes to EVE Online, here's CCP Berger.
Hey guys, this is me, CCP Berger, talking to you from the CCP headquarters in Reykjavik, Iceland. It's CSM week, super busy, super fun, a lot of fantastic conversations going on, pretty awesome. Over the last few months, we've been up in our game when it comes to content delivery. We've been shipping features and changes to the game every 2 weeks since October. These range from awesome things like the Frigate Escape Bay to new filaments, but it also includes more Eat Your Vegetables type features like broker relations and change to mineral distribution. We're doing all these things to give you more reasons to log in, undock, and do amazing things. Due to recent FanFest changes, you can expect to see more of me in the coming weeks and months to give you more glimpse into what we're thinking about the future of EVE. See you in space.
Back in January, we reported that the transition to the 64-bit client for EVE Online was complete and that we would be deprecating the 32-bit client. Since the 26th of February, users have no longer been able to launch the 32-bit version of EVE and have had to use the 64-bit version of the game. If you have previously manually selected the 32-bit client in the launcher, you will be automatically moved back to the 64-bit version, provided your system supports 64-bit. The move to a single 64-bit client will reduce the development time associated with maintaining two clients, while allowing further investment into the technical infrastructure of EVE. While the 64-bit client has been in use by a vast majority of players, if you're experiencing any issues, please file a bug report. And now, to an undisclosed location in deep space, it's CCP Convict.
Hi everyone, EVE is beautiful and we want to keep it that way. So I'm out here now just checking out some of the visual updates that we've made to the moons of New Eden. With high resolution textures, improved lighting and updated shaders, these changes will add more detail to these planetary satellites and increase the level of immersion capsuleers will experience while out in space. They do look really good. Oh, that's right. Last week we introduced needlejack filaments to the game, and since then, over 3,500 of them have been activated as pilots yeet their fleets all over New Eden. Wait a minute. Well, looks like I'm not going anywhere, but at least while we wait, we get to have a look at the new Healer Abyssal Exostorm and Darkfield skins, which are available in the New Eden store right now. In addition to that, the Forces of the Abyss skin bundle is also available for your Gila. As well as these 2 new skins, the bundle also includes the Abyssal Firestorm, Afterglow, and Abyssal Thunderstorm skins. The bundle is available for 30% off, so make sure you pick it up for your Gila. Now, where did I set my clone?
Thanks for joining us, Capsuleers. That's all for this episode of The Pulse. Remember to click subscribe to stay notified of updates to EVE Online and when a new video is posted. See you next time. By a majority, wow.
I said he was beautiful. Have been used to needlejack.
I like that he said majority. And CCP Convict is in the channel with us here too, but I like the way he said Gila. It's funny because
I'm so triggered right now about Gila.
I know. How do you say it?
So I say it the way that the animal was named after the river by the Spanish settlers, which is the Gila River and the Gila monster, and therefore the Gila. But to save my brain from exploding when people say Gila, I decided that the Guristas don't know how to pronounce the name of the earth animal from far away that they never saw. So the Guristas actually call it a Gila.
So you RP'd the
I RP'd everybody not knowing how to say Gila. I really, really want these people to go to New Mexico and like see this animal and be like, oh, look, it's a Gila monster, and then get laughed out of town.
Yeah. They get put in a cage with it. Yeah, I think of it as Gila monster too, but my background is Mexican American, or Mexican. So,
Convict, don't worry. I totally noticed, and I appreciate your attention to detail.
What for the audio listeners? What are you referring to? What did Convict say?
He just said in chat. He said, "Go back and listen to that part again. I think you'll find I covered all the coolest and most popular pronunciations." So he just basically got it all over the board. He made everyone feel included and/or triggered.
It isn't Gila. It isn't Gila. It's Gila, which is kind of right in
Well,
between.
if you listen to Andy Virus, it's a Gila.
A Gila. Okay, that's pretty funny. All right. Anyway, there are new skins there, and those are pretty good looking. Check those out. So Fight or Flight coming tomorrow. Pretty exciting. Now, what I had promised everybody at the beginning of the show was a little rundown on what happened last night in Wormhole Space. Do we want to tackle that? I guess I'll do it.
I was muted this entire time.
Hey, there you are.
Oops.
Hey,
Hey, Lichgrave.
You just thought we were
Look,
ignoring
there's a
you.
button. Click, 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 click. Anyway.
Okay, so last night was the setup for this is days old, but there was an eviction attempt on Scary Wormhole People, and we talked about them earlier in the program, also known as Dark Space Initiative, the Dark Space Initiative, and they go by TDSIN. That's how I say it. And they have a wormhole that was technically, the wormhole is, like all wormholes, named with a serial number, J164430. Now, so that you don't have to say that all the time, people give really popular wormholes or homes for certain groups, they give it kind of a nickname. And this nickname was Solaris. So this wormhole was invaded by, as you can see over here, Hard Knocks, Inner Hell, and Laserhawks. And those are three groups that together combine for over 100 combatants, and they're incredibly lethal. We did interviews with Inner Hell, and we've talked to Hard Knocks a few times, many times actually. Their old leaders and their new leaders. And Laserhawks, I don't think they do many interviews, although I did write some articles about them early on when they were first starting out. But since then, we haven't really talked to them. But those guys have been known to group up and help each other out as they become essentially an irresistible force in wormhole space, evicting people left and right. And that's been happening more and more over the last few months. Now, the big prize in evictions was going to be Scary Wormhole People because they themselves are equal to the size of all those three groups combined. They're a giant wormhole company with incredibly effective fighters as well. So this was the big showdown. And so they knew that they had, by they, I mean Scary Wormhole people, or TDSIN, knew that they had over the last few weeks 100 people, 100 foreigner invading forces seated in their system. In other words, they snuck in and they logged off, waiting for a signal to turn back on and to attack and destroy the structures that are in this system. The thing that became interesting is the wormhole mechanics have been changing, and that does play a role in this. And one of the things that have changed for wormholes is it was a small change. It's actually considered a bug fix. It wasn't really, to players, it wasn't a bug fix, but to CCP, it was on their list of bugs to fix. And it's a little complicated. I'll see if I can explain it, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, you could take a small ship, jump through a wormhole, turn on a prop module, a propulsion module, and that module, as one of the side effects of the extra propulsion, is to increase your mass signature. So it makes you much heavier. And that would drain a wormhole of its mass limits quicker, because wormholes collapse after too much mass passes through. And the nature of wormholes is to let only a few ships through, and then they collapse and they go somewhere else. So you can't stick giant ships through wormholes very often. Only certain types of wormholes even allow that much mass of a giant capital ship, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the mass restrictions of wormholes. And by doing that, you're getting a small ship to register as a big ship, therefore eating away at that wormhole and collapsing it quicker than you should be able to. And there's something about a frigate-sized wormhole that regenerates its mass, but you could overcome that regeneration using that technique. Well, what CCP did is said, we're going to change that mechanic. I don't know why they did. So when you jump, it registers your mass at that moment, not afterwards. So if you jump in with a small mass ship, it registers as a small mass deduction from the wormhole instead of this inflated, ballooned.
The issue is that previously they were using what amounted to an exploit, because you would enter the hole as one size and exit the hole as another size.
And it would count the exit size, not
Correct.
the entrance size. So they reversed that, and now it counts the entrance size, not the exit size, which means that you cannot roll a frigate hole. And therefore, a frigate hole is eternal until it naturally dissipates and goes somewhere else after a few days, let's say. I think that might be random.
Unless you just run a whole train of people through it.
All at the same time, which...
Yeah,
varies on
like
the
one
wormhole,
after the
but
next, after the next.
It varies on the wormhole, but it could be hours.
Yeah. So the point is, now here's why that's a big, big change. Normally, when a wormhole group decides that they want to cover their doors into their hole, they call them the wormholes, when they want to cover those and control the entrances and exits, they can. And they could even destroy the frigate wormholes if they appeared. But now that they can't destroy those, there's always a way into their system if a frigate wormhole appears. Now, this is a good thing or a bad thing. In this situation, for the defenders, it was a good thing, because last night, at the very last second, see, they were being assaulted by these three groups that are in there. And all the entrances and exits were controlled by the invaders. So they were not able to get reinforcements, helpers, to come into the system to help them out. And their only hope was that some kind of a frigate hole would appear. And if that were the case, then they could actually call for help and get new, fresh fighters into the wormhole. So when we went to air Sunday, we had the leader of Scary Wormhole people on our show, and we had the leaders of Hard Knocks on our show, or the FCs, not necessarily the leaders. And we talked about wormholes, and all this is at a point where it looks like impending doom for Scary Wormhole people. And then at the last second, after we went off air, in the middle of the U.S. time zone night, a wormhole opened up with a couple hours to go. and they were able to call for help. So they called for help, and nullsec groups answered the call. Goonswarm, Initiative, Pandemic Horde, Test. Now, what do all these groups have in common? Except maybe Initiative, but they're part of Imperium. They all have CSM representation, and the leader of Scary Wormhole People is also on CSM. And so there's good diplomatic relations going on there. And they like him a lot because he's such a good CSM that they want to help him out. So they sent fleets to bail him out. And so these fleets came in and came in to help defend that fleet. And so the reason this is an interesting and big fight is because now if a wormhole group has ties to nullsec and there is a frigate wormhole available, they may be able to get in some massive amount of fighters. Remember, nullsec fights on a scale of thousands. Wormholers fight on a scale of tens, and big fights at a scale of hundreds. So if there is a door open and you can get people in to either attack a wormhole or defend it, that means relationships with nullsec takes on a whole new value. That might be a really important thing to have. And the three groups attacking weren't alone. They also brought in their own nullsec group, which is Fraternity. Fraternity is incredibly powerful right now after helping to win the war in the north and also generating a ton of money in Oasa and the drone regions, and also forging alliances with other Chinese groups. So it was a very interesting dynamic in this fight, but the people that did come in to save Scary Wormhole People were too late, and the Fortizar exploded, and their equipment was destroyed and looted or thrown out into space. Wormholers don't get the benefit of the mechanic that's called, what's it called?
Asset safety.
Thank you. Asset safety.
Everything spills into space in cans. 100% drop. Go get it.
Yeah. So because of that, Scary Wormhole People in preparation take out their most valuable stuff, put it in freighter ships. Those freighters fly to some part of that system and log off. And that saves their valuable stuff for another day. They can come back a month later and recover that ship after all the action's gone. But what they also do is litter their inventory with fragments of junk, like useless ships, minerals, little tiny things. So when the Fortizar exploded and all this loot was ejected, there might have been 100 cases of loot, but there were 10,000 cases that needed to be gone through. So it becomes a real pain to loot these areas, which I thought was a funny little psychological trick. But anyway, last night, a few hours ago, they lost the first round of Fortizars. Their main Fortizar is this first one here, but they lost the second Fortizar they lost was a faction Fortizar, so it looks a bit different. It looks like the old Amarian outposts. This one's called the Dracus Fortizar, and that was destroyed second. And then there was a series of other ships destroyed. The battle.
So those faction Fortizars are unique and will never be made again. There's 4 kinds of them, and for every single one that is destroyed, there is one less in the game forever.
Right. And they represent, I mean, we could go into how those were created because it was very interesting, but essentially they are unique, and there's only, I think they trade for about 40. What do these things?
I've seen them go between 40 and 100 billion, depending on how rare. Like the Galente one, the Marginis one, that looks like a tower and everybody loves. That one is the least common and costs the most.
There's some that have some special properties that.
They're all special. But you
no, I know.
The
but the
for it to be
special defensive properties in that they have so many effective hit points versus the damage cap that they're very hard to take down for a fleet that's not really big. I forget which one that one is, though. In any case, because I think there are actually 5 types, if I'm not mistaken. 4 that you see all the time, and then there's like 1/5 one that's kind of rare, I think. Anyway, I'm
pretty sure it's just the 4 Empire ones. Is there a 5th?
There's a 5th one. So you have your 4 Empire ones. The one that you see in front of you is the Amar. There's the Galente, the Minmatar, and the Kaldari. And then you have a fifth one, which is a literal faction Fortizar. So it looks like it is the new faction Fortizar, is the new Fortizar model, but it is a faction. The name of which escapes me.
Yeah, which one's the one that is very desirable because it has such a low damage cap and high effective hit points?
Oh, so the Moreau Fortizar
That's
is
the
the one that
one.
looks like a Fortizar.
That's the rare one that is very, very lucrative. That one will cost you a lot. But these here can go for as low as, I saw them as low as in December, 28 billion. 24, 28 billion at one point, 24 billion at one point, actually. But they can sell for a lot more. It depends on who's buying them.
Well, there's 2 Moreaus up on the Forge market right now. Yeah.
How much is it going for?
62 bill and 65 bill for the Moreaus on the Forge.
Yeah, that's actually that's great.
Huh. The Horizon is more. It's 75.
That might be a fluke, though. I don't know. I think the Moreau is the most expensive. Anyway,
Moreau is the most expensive.
Moreau is, right? Yeah.
It's the rarest.
I mean, well, there's 2 Horizons that are more. They're both 75 bill, and there's 2 Moreaus that are 62 and 65.
That's probably price manipulation. I would. That's my guess. Well, anyway, I don't know. The Moreau is just the one that I heard is incredibly desired. Hey, how's it going, Cable? That was Cable that was talking earlier.
Oh yeah, sorry. Hi.
Hi.
I'm not seeing any hit point bonuses.
It's not. It's
well, I'm actually going to compare.
It's a combination of the damage cap.
I think they all share this, though.
Yeah, but I think if you fit this one a certain way.
There's no bonus.
The Moreau Fortizar has 8100 shield HP. The regular Fortizar has 5400 shield HP.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So it's probably the Moreau,
same for
but
armor, same for structure.
If you do the math, the Moreau comes out to be highly tankable, and its damage cap, because it's only the size of a Fortizar, makes it as hard to kill as a Keep Star. And that is good for, a Keep Star costs a lot more. And is much harder to handle. A Keep Star has to be handled with a freighter. Only a certain freighter with certain modules can move it. So it becomes a more dangerous proposition. This thing's smaller, more compatible. You can deploy it in forward operating maneuver easier. There's some benefits to that, but again, these things are rare and they will eventually run out. So I don't know if you want to drop that sort of thing. It's usually safer to control a territory, even if you're invading, drop a Keep Star and stage out of that. Probably gives you different benefits too. Better defensives. Okay, anyway. Off track here. So that's what happened last night in Wormhole Space. It's a big, big fight. It's ongoing, but there's a second part to this that I won't get into because it's ongoing. And that is the counter eviction of Hard Knocks is happening right now. And what that means is, and this happens a lot, is when somebody's attacking you, they're not defending their home. And it's hard to get in and out of wormholes. So it's not as easy as them being able to go back to an alt or even jump clone back to an alt that's in their home. They can't do that. Am I wrong about that?
Any forces that have been deployed are not in the home hole.
But you can't jump clone into a
Correct.
wormhole.
You can't even jump clone from one clone bay to another clone bay in the same wormhole.
It just doesn't work. And you also can't self-destruct and end up back at home, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you USD to your med clone.
Oh, you do? So the med clones work.
Okay. Yeah, but there's only one wormhole
where
there's only one wormhole that has.
Yeah, you can set your med clone in Thera if you wish.
Yeah, there's only one wormhole where that works, and that's
Thera is not a wormhole system.
This is okay. Fine.
Heresy.
I mean,
fine.
This
I'll give you that. No, I'll give you that.
It's a funny argument that people make.
Thera is a fucking wormhole.
Cable, Cable lived in Thera, I believe, so maybe he.
I've lived in Thera for like 3 years, yo. Thera is a motherfucking wormhole.
You can keep telling yourself that, but that security status does not lie.
It also has no gates. It is located geographically in the game in the middle of all the other wormholes. It has no known location. It follows
is the
most
apex
of the
wormhole.
Yeah, it's a special wormhole, but it's absolutely a wormhole.
I mean, you can keep saying that, but the NPC stations are right there.
Yeah, you keep saying that, but your no gates are right there.
All right. So the point is, and this is, as you can see, it's a topic among wormholers. Is there technically a wormhole or not? It has special properties. It is the biggest system in the game. And it just is all kinds of unique qualities to it. Many, many entrances, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll table that discussion for later. But so Hard Knocks is getting counter assaulted and by friends of TDSIN. And so it's going to be interesting to see that while Hard Knocks is busy destroying the home of Scary Wormhole people, their home is going to be destroyed. Are they going to be able to do both? That remains to be seen. This is an ongoing struggle. You can't look at it. It's hard to see because it happens in wormholes, and it's hard to get live cameras in there. But we did last night with the help of Omeka Gold. We were able to stream the combat in this momentous fight yesterday. So that was really exciting.
Does this mean I'm not going to get to fight more with Lichgrave?
Yeah, well, for the moment.
I'm kidding.
For the moment. So that's what happened yesterday. It's an ongoing battle. It is significant, I think, historic in some ways. These are the titans of wormhole space colliding, but it also has all kinds of ramifications for the future of wormhole lifestyle. In other words, are you going to have to be friendly diplomatically with nullsec if they can play such an important role in these fights? These are big questions, and if so, is this just a counterbalance to the role that wormholers have played against nullsec in the past? So it's very interesting how the game seems to be kind of mixing wormholers and nullsec a little more together instead of having them on two different tracks. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting, I think. All right, you guys, any thoughts?
I just see this as just another opportunity. Like, yeah, you're gonna see this blend, but remember that we're talking about some of the biggest groups in the game, so of course you're gonna see that blend from nullsec. But in the overall scheme of things, I don't think this is going to affect smaller level or lower class wormhole fights at all.
There also seems to be a class struggle going on, right? Like the smaller wormhole groups are quite angry at Hard Knocks and Inner Hell and Laserhawks for the amount of purging that they're doing of groups. They're going in and just ransacking and destroying people's homes. Instead of having this, I'll let you live there, but come out and fight me, but I won't destroy your home if I win. Just to keep kind of like in shape.
They have this.
Yeah.
There's two narratives that are being told, and you have the large groups on the one hand saying, we are, we're the Langoliers, we're the cleanup crew, we're the ones that get rid of the chaff. If you fight, then you stay. If you don't fight, then we get rid of you. And then you have on the other side the narrative of the small group saying, yeah, bullshit, you just kill us no matter what. And it's tough to sort out what's true and what's not.
I mean, so it very much depends, like, on the group. There are those who will see any vulnerable structure and immediately just attempt to destroy it no matter what's happening. So it is difficult for people to enter wormhole space depending on who finds your hole first. On the other hand, but there are plenty of people who are just like, no, we need these people for fights. So it varies, and that comes down to fundamentally which wormhole what wormhole class you're trying to jump into, and how big of a force you're trying to put into that hole, and who was there beforehand if there's people there, right? And if there's not, it doesn't particularly matter depending on what system it is.
Yeah. So there is a class struggle between different types of players in wormhole space that is also represented in this fight, because this is the culmination of a lot of angst over the last few months that has been growing and growing. And here it is with essentially the last biggest group going down to this effort to essentially cleanse wormhole space. And one of the interesting things, and I think you'll see this, is a lot of the cleansing of wormhole space is to secure wormholes for renting. And I think you're seeing Fraternity renting some of those wormholes. So they're in business together with Fraternity and Inner Hell and Hard Knocks. It looks this way. I don't have confirmation from any of the groups that they're actually
That's not entirely true.
renting.
There used to be in the old days, but that doesn't.
Well, I know
There's
it happened.
been examples of it happening recently, and to which I'll say the people that happened to immediately got evicted by a different group. So it's not exactly renters because there's no defense play.
Yeah, it's more
similar
of
to
a
whole control.
cartel thing.
Yeah, it's like hold control. You buy the system, and that's your system. They won't come and evict you for it, but you're on your own afterwards. So it's not, it's a catch-22.
Protection money. There we go. Sorry.
Well, it's more like
I wouldn't
extortion.
even say protection.
Yeah.
Well, it is protection money from them.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exactly. It's more like racketeering or extortion. It's not exactly.
Yeah, sorry,
it's not protection really. But yeah.
Ponsway, did you have some?
Well, the concept of pay us or we'll come break your stuff is straight up. That's the protection racket, and that exists all over Eve. Sometimes people actually follow through with it, as in, you pay them and then they honor it. And sometimes people don't follow through with it, as in you pay them and then they kill you anyway. But this concept is a time-honored tradition in this game.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, so there it is. That's what's going on in Wormhole Space. We've talked about the incoming patch, so look for that tomorrow. We're awaiting patch notes. Should drop any moment now.
They will come tomorrow on patch day as the patch.
They're not releasing them a day early like they used to?
They stopped doing that. They stopped doing that like 3 months ago.
Yeah, they will most likely give them to us tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
It's intentional. It's intentional because they're as just like we discussed with the whole limiting information we can get from what's it called, Hobo Leagues. They want to limit the amount of time players get to like prepare and adapt to changes before they even get.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that's good. So we'll see what the patch has tomorrow when it actually arrives. All right, guys. Thanks very much for showing up. Appreciate you guys helping me out, Fonsway, especially all that great information you gave us on the needle jacks filaments. That's great stuff. And Spod and Cable, always good. And Lichgrave, thanks for coming by. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you tomorrow on Patch Day. For now, we're going to send you over to somebody who is actually doing filament stuff. And that is Evlog. I think it is. What's his name? Oh, I forgot his name. But he's great fun. Check him out. We'll go ahead and raid him. Thanks. And we'll see you tomorrow. Is it Jordy? No, I forget the name, but should be funny. And so he's using the, what are they called? Needle jacks. See what they do. What is it? Jibby.
Jebby
Vietar.
That's it.
The guys in chat are Jebby.
Enjoy Jebby, guys. See you later. Bye.
They went